The restaurant, the life behind it, and the day she walked in. There is a particular kind of quiet that belongs to a restaurant kitchen. At 5 in the morning, before the deliveries come, before the prep work begins, before anyone else arrives. Just you and the space and the smell of the previous night still fading from the walls. I have loved that quiet for as long as I can. Remember, it is the quiet that tells you the work is real, that it costs something, and that it is yours. My name is Marguerite. I am 68 years old. I have spent the last 6 years running a small restaurant called Fil Rouge on a side street in the kind of neighborhood that does not have foot traffic, so much as it has people who know where they are going. 42 covers, a menu that changes with the season, a wine list I select personally, a kitchen that runs on discipline and care and the understanding that every plate that leaves it carries a piece of my reputation. Before Fil Rouge, I spent 30 years as a Michelin inspector. I am telling you this now because it is relevant and because I believe in giving people the information they need. But I did not tell many people at the time. Inspectors do not. The work requires anonymity the way a good stock requires time. Without it, you get something that tastes right but is not. Grandma always said, the most powerful seat in any room is the one nobody thinks to watch. I retired at 62. I opened Fil Rouge at 63 because I had spent 3 decades telling other people what excellence looked like, and I wanted, before I was done, to build it myself. Every inspector secretly wants to cross to the other side. I was not secretly anything. I did it with my eyes open and my standards intact and the full understanding that what I had spent 30 years measuring would now be turned on me. The restaurant found its footing slowly, the way good things do. By year 3 we had a waiting list on weekends. By year 4 a critic from the regional newspaper called our lamb preparation the most technically precise he had encountered outside a major city. I clipped that review and put it in a drawer, and did not hang it on the wall because I do not believe in decorating a kitchen with praises, information. You note it and you keep working. And then, on a Wednesday in March, a young woman walked in without a reservation and asked if I knew who she was. Her name was Jade. She was 29 years old, had 200,000 followers across her social platforms, and a content brand built around what she called honest luxury dining experiences. She had a ring light in her bag. She used the word curated several times in the first 2 minutes. She told me, with the particular confidence of someone who has never been told no by anyone who mattered to her, that she would like to establish an ongoing arrangement. She would visit Fil Rouge weekly, she said. She would post. She would bring her audience, and in exchange, her meals would be complimentary. She said it the way someone states a schedule, not the way someone makes a request. The threat, the response, and the first review. I told Jade that I appreciated her interest in the restaurant and that she was welcome to dine with us at any time at the published menu prices, like every other guest. I said this pleasantly and without any particular emphasis. I told her that Fil Rouge did not operate a comps arrangement with content creators, that our policy was consistent, and that I hoped she would visit and enjoy the experience on those terms. She looked at me for a moment the way people look when a door they expected to open has not moved. Then she said, and I am going to quote this with precision because I wrote it in my notebook, within the hour, you might want to think carefully about that. I have ended restaurants before, one post from me and you are managing a 1-star average by the weekend. She left without ordering anything. I went back to the kitchen. I wrote down what she had said, the time and the date. Then I made a note to call my attorney the following morning. Grandma always said, when someone shows you their leverage, write it down immediately. It only has power if you forget the words. The first review appeared for days later, 1 star. The username was a variation of her handle, slightly altered, clearly her. The review stated that she had found a hair in her appetizer, that the server had been dismissive when she raised the concern, and that the owner, when informed, had been, in her words, shockingly rude and unapologetic. She described the food as overpriced and underwhelming and said she would not return. Jade had not eaten at Phil Rouge. She had stood in the entrance for 7 minutes on a Wednesday and left. There was no appetizer. There was no server interaction. There was no hair. Every element of the review was invented. I knew this because I had been present for the entirety of her visit and because my front of house manager theory, who misses nothing and forgets less, had also noted the exchange in our incident log that same evening. 2 more reviews followed over the next week. Different usernames but the same writing patterns, the same invented incidents, the same structure of complaint. A response time calculation I made based on posting timestamps suggested all 3 were written by the same person within a short window. My attorney, a woman named Constance who has handled my business affairs since Phil Rouge opened, said we had more than enough to proceed. I told her I wanted to wait 1 more week because I had not yet decided exactly what I wanted to proceed toward. And when you have 30 years of patience behind you, 1 more week is nothing. During that week I did 2 things. I contacted Yelp's trust and safety team directly, not through the standard reporting interface but through a professional channel. Constance identified and I submitted documentation, the timestamped notebook entry of Jade's visit and her statement, Theory's incident log, the security camera footage from the entrance showing Jade's arrival and departure and the absence of any dining interaction, and a side-by-side analysis of the review language patterns across all 3 accounts. I also drafted a letter to 3 former colleagues. The letter, the colleagues, and the credential nobody knew about. When you spend 30 years working for the same organization under conditions of strict confidentiality, you develop a particular kind of professional relationship with the people who do it alongside you. You know them not from conferences or networking events but from the way they eat, the way they observe, the way they write up a kitchen's plating discipline. In 40 words without wasting a single one, my former colleagues are the most precise people I have ever known. They are also, to a person, loyal. I wrote to 3 of them. I explained that Phil Rouge was being subjected to a coordinated false review campaign following a refusal to provide complimentary meals under implicit threat. I told them what the restaurant had become in 6 years. I asked them nothing directly. I simply told them what was happening and let them make their own decisions. Within 10 days, 2 of them had visited Phil Rouge independently. I did not know they were coming. That is, of course, the point. Grandma always said, the people who truly know quality do not announce themselves. They simply show up and pay attention. I want to be clear that I did not orchestrate an inspection. I have been on the other side of that process, and I understand exactly what it requires and what it prohibits. What I did was write a letter to people I had worked alongside for decades and let them draw their own professional conclusions. What happened next was their independent judgment, not my engineering. Meanwhile, Constance had filed the defamation suit. The complaint named Jade directly, citing the original review under her near-identical username, which Constance's digital forensics contact had traced to her primary account through metadata. The suit alleged defamation per se, meaning false statements of fact that caused measurable damage to a business, and sought $150,000 in damages. We had the security footage, the log, the notebook, and a documented 4-point drop in our aggregate review score across the 3 fake reviews. Jade's response, communicated through a representative rather than an attorney, was that the reviews reflected her honest experience and that she would be posting about the lawsuit to her audience. Her representative used the phrase public interest 3 times. Constance noted this in the file and said, "Nothing. I found it mildly interesting that someone whose entire platform was built on influence believed that influence would function as a legal defense. It does not function as a legal defense." Yelp removed all 3 reviews within 18 days of my submission to their trust and safety team. They also suspended the 3 accounts and, after Constance submitted the full documentation package including the forensic metadata analysis, the accounts were permanently banned. Jade posted about the ban. Her audience, in the comments of that post, was divided in a way that I imagine she found uncomfortable. Several people who had followed her for years said they had suspected something like this for some time. The Star, the courtroom, and the brand deals that stopped calling. The notification came on a Tuesday in November. I was in the kitchen doing inventory when Thierry came in holding his phone with an expression I had not seen on his face before. He showed me the screen. He did not say anything. He did not need to. Fil Rouge had been awarded a Michelin star. I sat down on the stool by the pass and held the phone for what was probably an inappropriately long time given that Thierry needed it back. I thought about the 5 o'clock mornings, the first year when we barely covered costs, the review from the regional critic that I had put in a drawer, the letter I had written to my colleagues 3 months earlier, the small, particular pleasure of having spent 30 years learning exactly what a star required, and then, at 68, being on the right side of the judgment for the first time. Grandma always said, the work you do in private always has an audience. You just do not know their names yet. The defamation trial was for months after the Star. Jade had retained an attorney by then, though the representation changed twice before the hearing date, which Constance noted was consistent with a client who was difficult to manage. The trial lasted 2 days. The evidence was straightforward. The security footage alone was decisive. 42 minutes of timestamp verified recording showing Jade's 7-minute visit and the complete absence of any dining experience. Jade's attorney argued that the reviews, even if inaccurate in specific details, reflected a general impression formed during her brief visit. The judge, a compact and extremely focused woman named Judge Okafor, asked the attorney to clarify how a general impression could include a specific claim about a hair in a specific appetizer that was never ordered. The attorney did not clarify this to Judge Okafor's apparent satisfaction. The judgment was $150,000, full amount, no reduction. The brand deals began declining within weeks of the lawsuit becoming public record. Court filings are public journalists who cover the food and lifestyle industry found the case without any assistance from .me. 3 brands that had active partnership agreements with Jade terminated those agreements, citing conduct clauses in their contracts. The pending partnerships did not progress to signing by the time the judgment was issued. Her primary income stream had reduced to a fraction of its previous level. She filed for bankruptcy protection 8 months after the judgment. The $150,000 debt was listed among her creditors. I received a portion of it through the claims process. The mathematics of bankruptcy meant I did not recover the full amount. Constance told me this was likely before the trial, and I told her I understood. The money had never been entirely the point. What the kitchen knows that the platform does not. People ask me, usually in the context of this story, what I think about food content on social media, whether influencers add value, whether the review economy is broken. I find these questions less interesting than people expect. because I think they are looking for a larger verdict when the story is actually specific. The story is about one person who made one set of choices. The platform is not the protagonist here, she is. What I think about is craft. I think about it the way I've always thought about it, which is with the recognition that it is not romantic. It is early mornings and physical repetition and the discipline to hold a standard when nobody is checking. It is decades of building something that can be measured against the best in the world and found not wanting. That is not a content category. It is a life's work, and it does not require an audience to be real. But here is the thing about a life's work. It tends to outlast the things that try to diminish it. Grandma always said, excellence is not something you defend. It is something you demonstrate. And the demonstration is its own argument. Fil Rouge has been full every weekend since the star was announced. The waiting list for a Saturday evening is currently 6 weeks. We have not changed the menu philosophy, the portion approach, or the pricing structure. We have not added a ring light. We have not created a content strategy. We have continued doing exactly what we were doing, which is cooking food at the level I spent 30 years learning to recognize. Thierry told me recently that a table of 4 came in on a Thursday, who had driven to ours, specifically because of the star. They were a family, to parents and to grown children. They had the older daughter mentioned to Thierry at the end of the meal, been celebrating something private and had wanted to do it somewhere that felt genuinely earned. That word, earned, Thierry repeated it to me, exactly as she said it, and I thought about it for several days afterward. I have kept the notebook entry from the Wednesday in March, the one with Jade's visit time and her exact words. I keep it not out of grievance but because I think it is important to have a clear record of the moments when something tried to take something from you and did not succeed. It is not a trophy, it is a reference point. There is a difference. And on the days when the 5 o'clock quiet feels harder than usual, I open the notebook to that page, and then I close it and start the stock. The side street, the star, and what 42 covers taught me. Fil Rouge turns 7 in the spring. I am planning a small menu in honor of it, nothing announced, nothing posted. Just a Thursday evening where every dish reflects a year of the restaurant's life in some way that only the kitchen will fully understand. Thierry thinks I should make it an event. I told him the kitchen already knows it is an event, and that is enough. I have been asked whether I plan to reveal my Michelin background more publicly now, whether the story has changed the calculus on anonymity. My answer is that the story changed nothing. I had decided I am a restaurateur now. The inspector years are the foundation, not the identity. What I built here I built as Marguerite who runs Fil Rouge, not as a credentialed authority making a point. The credential was only relevant because someone else made relevance necessary. Grandma always said, do not lead with your history. Let your present speak first. The history is there if anyone needs it. They needed it, and it was there. That is the whole of it. I think about Jade sometimes, not with anger and not with satisfaction, but with the particular, slightly sad clarity you get when you watch someone waste an enormous amount of energy building the wrong thing. 200,000 people were following her. 200,000 people who were willing to be interested in food, in restaurants, in the experience of eating somewhere good. That is not nothing. That is a real opportunity to do something worthwhile with a platform. She used it as a weapon against a 42 cover restaurant on a side street. And the 42 cover restaurant on the side street is still here and has a star on the wall that I finally agreed to hang. Because Thierry said the staff deserved to see it every day, and he was not wrong. The star is next to the kitchen door, not framed expensively, just mounted cleanly on a piece of dark Would that one of our line cooks made on a weekend because he wanted to. Every person who works here walks past it when they start their shift and when they leave. Nobody makes a ceremony of it. It is simply there, the way, and things are simply there. Quiet and permanent and requiring nothing further from anyone. Grandma always said, the best restaurants, like the best people, do not need to explain themselves. You sit down, you pay attention, and you understand. Thank you for being here. If this story found you today, I hope it reminded you that the things you build with genuine care are harder to damage than people assume. Document everything. Know your worth. Precisely. And never, under any circumstances, let someone with a ring light tell you what your work is worth. Leave a comment if this reached you. Share it if someone needs it. And if you are ever in the neighborhood, the reservation line is open.